So today, Jason and I are presenting Nick Monzu, by the way, if you guys don't know me, I'm a personal trainer here at UBX. I partnered here with Mr. Jason Ott. If you don't know him, he is the wizard of nutrition who I partnered with because I specialize in metabolism, movement, and psychology. And this dude, he talks about the food. And as we dive into this presentation, you guys understand that health, it's a lot more than just one aspect. It's not just your nutrition, it's not just lifting weights or going for a run. There's a lot to it. And that's one of the reasons that Jason and I have kind of split off and we specialize in separate areas of health, because we had to admit that we couldn't learn it all ourselves and we couldn't do it all on our own. And it takes a village to help a person. And so that's what we've come together to do. And today is about primordial prevention. Who here has heard of the term primordial before? Yeah? Any takers on what that is? Before the genesis, so before the start of. So primordial prevention would be trying to prevent something before it even occurs, instead of the normal route of waiting until things come about and then trying to address them, which I think all of us have run into at some point in time of our lives, because that's kind of the culture nowadays. So we're going to jump into this, guys. Please wait to hold the questions until the end. We'll have a little time there for you guys to ask there. But hope you guys enjoy the presentation. So what we're going to go over today, guys, is we're going to start with the different types of prevention. The word prevention, you just, okay, I want to prevent disease or disability or obesity, but there's different kinds of prevention. And so I'm going to actually break that down a little bit for you guys and dive in so you guys understand a little bit more about what we're talking about. We're then going to go into the mismatch hypothesis, talk a little bit about a mystery monkey, and it's not me, it's an actual one in the presentation, I promise. What we're adapted for versus our environment and our behaviors now. We're going to break down a disease, so type 2 diabetes. So after we present some information, we're going to actually kind of practically walk you guys through our thinking and show how it's a little bit different than the conventional model that you'll normally see. And then we'll give you some practical tools to then adopt yourselves. And so you guys can leave here with some information that you can take with you. You're not just leaving here with just more knowledge that you can collect and write in a notebook somewhere. Cool? All right. So types of prevention. So first of all, guys, prevention, it's any action to reduce, eliminate the onset, causes, complications, or reoccurrence of disease or disability. So we all want to prevent things, right? That's why we try to adopt a healthy lifestyle. That's why we go to the doctor to make sure we're not coming down with illnesses. Let me ask you a question, though. Are we just living our lives, going about doing our daily activities, and then all of a sudden we develop diabetes? Or all of a sudden we develop high blood pressure? And now we have to go get on a medication, or now we have to have a surgery? But I know quite a few people that would tell you that their significant other who passed away from a heart attack, they were healthy until the day they keeled over. A little bit of illogic in there, right? And that's why I love this continuum here, guys, of understanding that it's not just you're healthy until you're sick. It's not how it works. There's a lot of other things that are happening in the background before you start to be symptomatic or before you develop a disease. And so what we're talking about is understanding that there's these levels. And you can do things to take yourself and your body as far away from sick as you can and be on the far level of healthy. Or you can flirt on this end. So if you go to the doctor, if you're not past that line, what can they do? Give you some recommendations on some stuff, right? Maybe go work out a little bit more, maybe eat a little bit better. But until you hit that line, until now you say, hey, your blood pressure is at a certain level or your blood sugar is at a certain level, now we can give you a pharmaceutical. But what do we do until then? Is there anything we can do to prevent ourselves from getting to that dire point? I believe so. And so does Jason. And me and him have been putting our brains together to develop a program and develop a community where we teach people the processes and the methods to do just that. Because we believe that we are not meant to be diseased, disabled, and obese, but right now that's where the majority of us are at. So moving on here. So the different types of prevention, guys. So there's 4 different kinds here. If you can see, guys, this pyramid here. I'm going to break this down. Don't worry, a lot of words. So primordial is what we're talking about earlier. Again, this is trying to avoid the risk in the first place. Not even get to the point to where I have a little bit of elevated blood sugar that now I have to go watch that. There's different things we can do to put into our lives with our behaviors and our choices that'll start to do that. But we don't talk about that end of this. What we do is we wait for primary prevention when, okay, hey, that blood sugar is starting to creep up. And then you go into your doctor, and your doctor tells you what? Take pill? Not yet. Don't worry, we got one more level yet. But what it is they tell you the recommendations from the CDC, if you are pre-diabetic, are you need to reduce your fat and calorie intake. You need to get 150 minutes of aerobic exercise in every week, and you need to reduce your body fat percentage by 5 to 7%. Could we do all of that before I have pre-diabetes? Did I need a doctor to tell me that? No, but we wait until they do. And then that's the first time that we maybe start to think about it. And then by that time, things are already moving in the wrong direction. Depending how old we are and how many children you've had, things can get a lot harder way quicker. So once we get to the secondary level, that's where now I can get a statin or I can get on metformin. So now they're going, okay, now I can do something for you. You're at a point now where your blood sugar is at a level where we can start to drop those down with some pharmaceuticals, guys. We'll get you on that, and don't worry, we'll start you on a low dose, and then slowly over time we might just tick that up a little bit farther. Is that taking care of the main cause of it, though, right? It's what I like to call symptom stomping. It's like playing whack-a-mole with symptoms. That's all we're doing there. But there's another level, don't worry. There's another level of prevention, the tertiary level, the fourth level. Because if you're diabetic long enough, what we'll do is to make sure that that rotting leg and foot you have doesn't cause you any more issues, we're just going to cut it off. So that's the choices that we have. And that's where most of us live our lives, is just waiting in fear of these. It's like we're all almost primary anyway, and we're just waiting to the point to where you have to go get on a drug or get a limb cut off or have some surgery. That scared the crap out of me really, really early. And I did not want to go down that route. And I asked the question, I kind of woke up and I'm like, how did we get to this point? As a culture, when we look around at each other, like how we got to this diseased, disabled, and this obese place where we're unhealthy. Our mortality rates have gone down, but our morbidity rate, meaning your unhealth, like your level of being unhealthy, has skyrocketed. So yes, we're living longer, and everyone says this is the greatest time because we're living very long, but what's our quality during that time? Again, I firmly believe that we can make choices and decisions to change our behavior and the environment around us to then move out of this place that we've kind of woken up into. With me so far? Yeah. Cool. Down here, if you guys want a little bit more of an explanation of here, as you guys can see, I like visuals. And so this is the level that we're at, guys, is that this is normal glucose tolerance. So your normal blood sugar levels. Primordial prevention is doing things to keep yourself right here. And as you can see, as that goes up, we're screwing ourselves, guys. And there's things that you can put in here, but no one talks about the fact that you can just stay down there without medical intervention. And again, that's through nutrition and then through behaviors. We're going to talk about how you guys can do that. So again, the risk factors, guys, stuff that we can start to address real quickly just to make sure that we're taking care of things before they get started. And again, they're all obvious, guys. Tobacco use, being physically inactive, having an unhealthy diet, harmful use of alcohol. All things that we know can cause us ill health, but we don't take them very seriously in my experience with myself and the people I work with. And addressing this is particularly useful for the non-infectious chronic diseases. Do you guys know what those are, right? That's going to be like the heart disease, like diabetes, these things that we shouldn't be having or shouldn't be dealing with. And they shouldn't be rampaging through our entire culture like an epidemic, like an infectious disease does, like the bubonic plague. But diabetes and heart disease, they're right up there with that now, guys. So, why? So, right, the question of why are we in this place we're at right now, right? That's the more logical question is, why do we need to do things preemptively to try to be healthy? Because shouldn't our bodies just be healthy in the first place? This little mystery monkey explains a lot. So this guy right here is Cornelius. He was a rhesus macaque monkey who was in captivity in Tampa Bay, Florida. And he escaped. And he ran loose and survived, not only survived, but thrived, evaded capture from all the local authorities for 3 years. He ran around the streets, living, eating out of dumpsters, having himself a hell of a time. He became like a local legend almost. And people were astonished by the fact that this monkey escaped from captivity and he was thriving. People were astonished, right? Like, he's living in a metropolis of Tampa Bay. How is this monkey thriving? And the funny thing is like Dr. Dan Lieberman, who wrote this book, The Story of Humans, he says here, the monkey epitomizes how some animals survive superbly in conditions for which they were not originally adapted. When viewed from an evolutionary perspective, the monkey's presence in Tampa was no more presence than the presence of a vast majority of humans living in cities, suburbs, and other modern environments. Do you guys understand what that's trying to say? The fact that we laugh at this monkey thriving in a metropolis society, feeding off of the foods that we eat, but then we don't ever turn that back at ourselves. And we don't ever ask, like, I think we came from them at some point, you know, we're just have a little less fur, so we stand upright. But why is that such a crazy concept for us to think about? And that brings up this mismatch hypothesis, guys. And the mismatch hypothesis is basically it's trying to answer this question of why are we struggling from these diseases and why are we developing these? And the fundamental answer to why so many humans are now getting sick from previously rare illnesses is that many of the body's features that were adaptive in the environment for which we evolved have become maladaptive in the modern environments that we have now created. This is the mismatch hypothesis. So again, some visuals for this. So this is our original environment. This is where we're living. All of a sudden, we develop a trait. Do you guys understand what I'm saying like that? We develop an adaptation, right? Like we develop fair skin so that in conditions where there is less sunlight, we can synthesize more vitamin D. So that's an adaptation for the original environment, okay? So that's advantageous where it evolves, but then the environment changes. And this is the big part, guys, is that throughout the time that we evolved to be this modern day human, right down here, guys, is this little chart. So this is the past and this is the present. This is changes in climate right here. So we got cold, hot, going up and down. We've had these shifts. So when the environment changes, all of a sudden this trait that was advantageous can become mismatched. So all of a sudden this trait is not advantageous for the environment that that creature is living in anymore. Make sense? Cool. So basically when that happens, now that creature has to make a choice, and that's what this chart over here is showing. So as things changes, it has a couple choices here, guys. It has 3 different choices that a creature can make as the environment's changing around it. It can either become extinct. It runs out of the ability to adapt anymore. It becomes non-adaptive, and then that animal becomes extinct. With me? This other one is it can move. I can just keep moving to an environment that is good for the adaptations that I have. And so now I'm matched to my environment. Make sense? Cool. Well, this last one is the one that our species took. As the weather changed and climate changed, not only did we change, but we became more versatile. So that we had this ability to survive in this huge array of different environments. How advantageous is that to the survival and reproduction of your species, if you can survive in a giant range of environments? Is that better or is that worse for you? It's better, right? So we're very versatile creatures. And that's one of the reasons that we're here today, and there's a bunch of us, and we're taking over. Questions on that, guys? So that's the hypothesis that we're going into, is the theory is that a lot of these diseases are coming because we are in an environment that is not advantageous for the adaptations that we have developed over time of the development of our species. Cool? So what are we adapted for, right? That's the next logical question we're going to go to. So our closest living relative is the chimpanzee, and at some point in the historical record, we shared a common ancestor. It's somewhere around 5 to 8 million years ago, and climate change appears to be the biggest reason. I talked about that earlier. We went from being a arboreal or a tree-living ape chimp to eating almost exclusively fruit, to all of a sudden, temperature starts changing and now there's savanna. So now there's less of the trees, there's less of the fruits that we fed on, and now I have to go and adapt and become more versatile if I'm going to survive as a species. And so climate change is one of the best. There's a bunch of different hypotheses of what contributed to the shift, but that's a giant one. It's climate change, okay? So, like it or not, we are slightly fat, furless, bipedal primates who crave sugar, salt, fat, and starch. But we're still adapted to eating a diverse diet of fibrous fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, tubers, and lean meat. And it's a truth, and we can't get away from that, guys. This is our history. So we can break down these adaptations. We could go into a bunch of them, but I kind of really want to focus on a couple of them that I think are really important, and that we can take some practical information out of and actually use it. And so this first one, guys, is spending most of our time upright, moving slowly, okay? We're foraging, we're trying to get fruits, nuts, seeds, we're digging, we're climbing, we're moving all over the place. And then we're going to hunt and we're going to track animals. And all that's spent moving at a slow pace upright. So the first transition is that we went from all fours to now standing upright. That's a giant transition. Do you know how much less stable you are standing on 2 legs than you are on 4? I'm going to go a little bit more into the skeletal differences, which I think a couple people will enjoy in here. But that is what I want you guys to start to understand. Is the first one is that the very first thing that we did is we stood up. And what are all you guys doing right now? And how much time do we spend sitting in a day? A lot. I got a graphic I'll show you here in a little bit that'll maybe put that into a better context for you guys. But just get you guys thinking. I'm going to go deeper in all of these. Developed an increased rate of fat storage. That's the slightly fat part I was talking about up there. All right, I'll get into that. And it gives you a couple things, guys. Again, we like to demonize things. We like to give it a label of this is bad or this is good. Fat's one of those things. Fat is demonized, and we all hate it, and we want to get rid of it, and to the point to where we'll have doctors just cut it out of us. It's like, we just get it off me, right? I'm going to say it's an adaptation, and it helped you for a long time. But again, with that mismatch of our environment, it's become non-advantageous to us. Because it also provides fuel for nursing in time of famine, it increases your endurance capabilities. Leisure time is spent resting and communicating and cooperating with our tribe. It's about 25 to 100 people. How many Facebook friends do you guys have? So is that your tribe? Could that be the group that you hang out with? I bet it's a hell of a lot more than 25 to 100 people now. And what's your leisure time spent? Is it watching a TV maybe? Sitting down? Not communicating with anybody? And then cultural adaptability, guys. Our ability to innovate and improvise, and then arts, tools, and technology. These are pieces that I think that have been hijacked by our current culture. And if we can understand how they've been hijacked and how we can start to adjust those, we can start to readapt to a better environment, guys. I'm going to walk you through it. Bipedalism and endurance. Bipedalism means being on 2 feet, guys, opposed to being a quadruped. These are all adaptations, guys, these differences that have enabled us to be upright and then be able to walk on 2 feet. Where our spine inserts into our head is so that we can be upright instead of in the back of the head like a quadruped. Our actual shape of our rib cage changed so that we don't have to climb as much, and that we can now be more balanced when we're upright. The shape of our spine, it's more of an S in the human, and in the great apes it turns to be a little bit of a C because they're quadruped all the time. The S shape helps us hold our body up. The hips, a great ape's hips are flared this way because they're down on the ground all the time. If you stand a chimp up, it walks on the side of its feet all bow-legged out because of the shape of its hips. Humans have a bowl shape so that now we can move on 2 feet efficiently. These all changed in the skeleton because we started standing on 2 feet. And a giant reason that we have debilitating chronic pain and disability is because we spend all of our time sitting. Do you understand? Your hamstring muscles, one of their main jobs is to stabilize your pelvis, to hold it into a good position. Do you know what your hamstrings are doing when you're sitting on a chair? Absolutely nothing. Our toe moved in, guys. We developed an arch in the foot. I can go into this. I love this. I'm a giant nerd about this stuff. But I just want you guys to understand the scope of what standing on 2 feet did, because it literally changed the shape of our skeleton. And if we don't think that spending our time sitting in chairs and not going back to where we should be isn't going to affect our body, how we move, and how our physiology functions, we're dead wrong. And this next piece is really cool. I really enjoy this. So this chart here, it's showing a couple different animals. We got a horse, we got a pony, and we got a dog. What this here is then speed. The blue is a trot, and then this orange here is a gallop. With me? Down here, as you can see, the human endurance range of our jog, our slow run, goes past all of these quadrupeds. They can run faster than us, hell yeah. But this is really interesting, guys. Not only did this allow us to forage for foods better and we have hands free to use tools, but this setup of the skeleton made us extremely efficient at long distance endurance running. And what this is showing right here, this chart. So, who has a dog here? How do they cool themselves down when they're really hot? They pant, right? What do? We sweat. Okay. So what if I said that quadrupeds, because their organs slosh around and hit their diaphragm, when they gallop, they can't pant while they gallop. So quadrupeds cannot cool themselves down when they are running at a gallop speed. With me? So we can jog slowly at a pace that we can hold almost all day, faster than these guys can cool themselves down. So we developed this adaptation to move long distances at a slow speed to hunt animals. Because how many of you guys can go take down a wildebeest with a pointy stick? I couldn't either. But if it's so exhausted and overheated that it's lying down on the ground and all you have to do is walk up and poke it, seems like a hell of a lot smarter way to hunt than going out and risking your life every time you want to go get some meat. Make sense? Cool. Questions on that at all? That's me trying to convince you to go out and walk and maybe go out for a jog. Okay. Adaptations for eating a diverse diet. So after this, we're going to let Jay jump in here, but there's so much fighting and arguing when it comes to the foods that we should be eating. I'm going to say, let's look at the skeletal records and see what we're actually adapted for, and then now let's make decisions and assumptions based on some logical science, okay? Yeah, make sense? Cool. So what we can see here, guys, is comparative anatomy is we're going to look at the different teeth of different animals. So over here we have a carnivore, okay? Giant teeth. Let's just look at these. Which look the most similar to a human's there, guys? We have human on the right. What do we look most like? What do you guys say? What's that?
We most look like an omnivore with the canine teeth.
You see those guys there? We have those little guys there, but I don't think that's going to go take out anybody's jugular anytime soon, is it? Unless you really want it, I guess. So, guys, over here. Understanding that we have these teeth in the front that are flat, that are used for scraping and biting things, cutting through it. And then the back, they're grinding. The ones in the back, these molars that you see that aren't in these at all, are for grinding things. We can move our jaws laterally. Carnivores can't move their jaws laterally to grind things. It's not possible. They can't do it. Their anatomy won't let them do it. So again, this is one more chart or visual that I'm going to throw up here to show guys that we talk about the carnivore diet. And go for it. But I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say our anatomy does not go with that logic. And after this guy comes up here and shares a little bit of nutrition information, hopefully that'll settle in a little bit deeper with you guys.
I like those socks. Those are nice. All right. So hopefully he gave you a little bit of history. So I want to talk about what I believe the purpose of food to be. Obviously that's changed over time. So before agriculture, before the Industrial Revolution, we ate, we lived differently, much differently, right? So I go back, and when I think of food, the first thing I think of is Hippocrates. So let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. So this was 460 to 370 BC. So back then we viewed food a little different. Today we really need to view food that way because, well, we need a lot more medicine. Everything in excess is opposed to nature. So if we look at now and we look at how we live with excess, we're not in harmony with nature at all, whether we say our individual physiology or our planet. The greatest medicine of all is teaching people how not to need it. As he broke down our forms of prevention, do we do that at a fundamental level? Do we teach our kids that? Do our schools teach us that? No. We aren't teaching anyone how to stay well and be healthy on any level. So what are we really doing? We can't just avoid it. Probably my favorite quote of all time, an Ayurvedic proverb: when diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. When diet is correct, medicine is of no need. Did I need to say that one again? Did you catch that one? So I find great value in that because I'm going to share a brief part of my personal story. My mother was diagnosed with cancer when I was young. At no point did medicine ever stop the progression of, and then what caused her eventual death. At no point was food or anything else an actual means of helping her when a teenager or someone in their 20s talks to somebody about that. So medicine didn't help her. Why? Food's primary purpose is to maintain long-term optimal function of our internal organ systems, keeping us free of death, disease, and disability. It's the primary purpose of it. Primary. Secondary can be taste. I want our food to taste good. I want to enjoy what I eat. But the primary function of it is to make sure we don't get sick and die. That should always be number one. It's not. In fact, I don't think many people have a meal a day that is even that. Very, very few, as I'll talk about later. So I see this over time, the purpose of our food has changed. We wanted to evolve as a society. I don't think it was malicious. Maybe there were some evil people that sat up there and talked about stuff like that, but I think we were trying to evolve and adapt. We were trying to set our society up for a way that we could do whatever the hell we wanted and have more time, so we didn't have to wake up every day, go outside, hunt for our food, whether that be gathering it, and eventually, as Nick explains, we evolved to hunt something which we rarely made a kill. We were fruitarians. And all the way on our way to making a kill, then we did, but really we ate plants most of the time. But things changed. We had this thing called the Industrial Revolution around 1760. Everything was going to change. We were going to have houses and streets, and we were going to have systems and businesses and corporations running things to make life easier so we didn't have to wake up every morning and farm and go after our food and work so damn hard. Individually, right? If we worked together collectively, we could make things easier. Culture really changed in 1912. This is when things started to change as far as statistically speaking of our rates and causes of death. They shifted. We learned something about canning. We decided we could make a bunch of food, keep it, preserve it, and then we wouldn't have to work so hard. We could have days where we're just going to pull something out and eat from that instead of making something. Okay? So we began to change. By 1952, we had multi-international fast food chains. Okay, we finally actually developed them. They started to spread across our nation. And more people, this is great. I don't got to go home and cook. I can spend time with my family. And that is a wonderful thing. We could run through, we could get something, we have more time with each other. But the blue zones, the longest living people in the world, they decided, well, we're just going to spend time with our family making food together, learning about these things, instead of bypassing that. What's ironic is we're in Omaha right now, and C.A. Swanson in Omaha was, in 1954, they created the TV dinners. So we're living in that. And then you got a crazy guy up here talking about eat all plants in the heart of where you could easily say we don't believe that. So that changed. So by the 50s, then we move into factory farming. And now, I think before the factory farming, our average consumption was much lower. The quality was greater when we talk about animal products. So we decreased the quality and we increased the consumption. And if we increase the consumption of something one way to get energy, we decrease the foods that actually kept disease out of our body, just by default. I don't even think it was conscious. People didn't think about it. We didn't even know. It's kind of like cigarettes, right? It took 20 years and almost 7,000 research studies before the Surgeon General came out and said, cigarettes cause cancer. Really? After 7,000 studies? Believe? That's a lot. So then nutrition changed, okay? The information was given to us by big industry. It wasn't taught in our schools. Our parents didn't know. It used to be from elders who lived longer than us. It used to be passed down. They were the secrets. They were given to us. But now we don't realize we're being marketed to because we accept the fact that, well, if they're on TV, or if it's a trendy diet with all these supplements and all these things I can buy, it must be legit and they're looking out for the good of us. We live in a capitalistic society. Number one is money. So as a consumer, no matter if we're talking nutrition or whatever it is, you have to be vigilant, right? You have to do your own research. We just don't have that much time to do that research, even though our culture was built on creating more time. That's ironic. So health was forgotten and it was replaced by taste only. In fact, around the 1960s, they say that's where the term picky eater came. I grew up, and if I didn't eat the damn food on the plate, I went to bed hungry. Not anymore. We just swoop something up. There's families that'll 3 different people eat 3 different things and hit every fast food restaurant on the way home so everyone can get what they want. And we don't think there's any consequences.
So building off what Jay just kind of talked about is that our culture has shifted a long way from the time when we had to go out and fight and scrap and put out energy to acquire energy. Make sense? I had to go collect berries. I couldn't get Grubhub. Takes a lot less energy to do this than it does to go get food, right? Okay. So this is where we started this mismatching of our environment, guys, to what we're adapted to do and what we're here for and how our bodies work. And that's where this part comes in, is this increased rate of fat storage, is understanding that our propensity to gain body fat was an adaptation and still is in a lot of ways. An infant chimp, a chimpanzee baby, when they come out, is 3% body fat. A human infant is 15% body fat when they come out. Why? Are we just screwed? Are we just dysfunctional from the start? No. There's a huge part of this, guys. There's the brain size, okay? We have big brains that use a ton of energy. Endurance is a giant one as well too, guys, is that we use fat for those long distance chases I was talking about earlier. Understanding that this is an adaptation, guys. We've all seen camels, right? Camels, those giant humps they have on their back, guys, it's an adaptation for times of famine for them. Because there were times when, again, as humans, we would go long bouts where we didn't have food. conveniently placed in places for us. We had to go out and get it. And there was times like the cold seasons, again, when the climate was shifting, when there wasn't as much out there. And so what did we do is we started storing fat like camels do. Because fat, when it's burnt, not only does it give you energy, but it gives you water as well. It's part of the byproducts of breaking down fat. So it is an adaptation that allows us to survive. Again, guys, this persistence hunting. So the name of there's an actual, up until the 2000s, there was a tribe in the Sahara that still did persistence hunting. And what that is again, they had a stick, and 3 of them went and they found a big 4-legged creature with hooves, and they started chasing it. And they might start at like 9 in the morning, and they would chase it until it would try to find shade and stop, but they wouldn't stop because they're moving at a slow pace, and again, it can't cool down. So it ends up exhausting itself until they just walk up and poke it. That might take 12 hours. That's a hell of a lot of energy to get a hamburger, right? A hell of a lot more than we have to expend now to get meat. That's also way higher quality meat than we're getting from the delivery guy that came. With me? Big one, babies. They need fat, guys. They need it to grow. Their brains, their bodies, guys. Like we start out with it because, again, it's a gift that to feed our hungry brains. Our brains use almost twice as much fuel as like a chimp's brain. They're energy hungry, guys. So we use that at the beginning of our lives to help fuel ourselves. When we get to like a child, that comes up to like 20 to 25% fat from that 15. And then hunter-gatherers, healthy people that move the adequate amounts that are upright, that eat a healthy amount of and a wide variety of foods, drop down to like 10% as men and 15% as women. Our average as Americans is way higher than that. And again, that's a big part of this, guys, is when we return to there's a lot of the paleo talk, and we want to go back to living like a hunter-gatherer. That's not what I'm preaching. And I'm not saying that our women should be 15% body fat, but I'm saying that we should be lower than the American average is right now. And that's the big part, guys, is your brain is 2% of the size, but it uses 20% of your total energy. All these things, guys, are the reasons that we gain fat easily. And again, it was an adaptation for a couple million years. But we have now created a culture and an environment where it's flipped on us. And then this is the big one, cultural adaptability. So as we got all these adaptations and we started spreading out of Africa and we moved up into the old world of Europe and the Middle East, we then developed culture. And that was one of the biggest transitions in humankind, is that we started creating art. We started creating more advanced technology, fire, these things that transform not only how we behave with each other, but our bodies. Our guts are smaller than a chimp's because fire and processing of food reduces the amount of digestion needed to get energy from food, so that we could allocate that energy and space now to our brains instead. So these cultural things that we started bringing into our lives, they started changing our biology. And a lot of people think that it's actually exceeded the speed at which nature is now selecting adaptations for us. With me, guys? That means that our culture is now evolving us at a faster rate than nature is. That's powerful. And that's huge. And that's where we have to really start to understand that this is the main piece. It's that we have bodies that are designed to be somewhere and do something that is mismatched to this easygoing life of comfort and relaxation, because that has been the goal of us forever, is to get to the point to where we don't have to. And we did. But we did too damn well of a job at it. And that's why this presentation was created, is because we need to understand the history of where we came from before we start to make assumptions or choices about where we're at right now. It's like going to a movie and waiting I'm just going to go watch the last 5 minutes, and then I'm going to try to figure out what the entire story meant. And then now I'm going to go make choices and go tell people about the movie afterwards and tell them how my perception of what the story was is correct. I only got a 5-minute chunk. And that's why we try to set up and explain to you guys where we've come from. And then now how that shifted once we started having agriculture and we started having processed foods. It's incredible, guys, and this is the biggest part, and that's why we created an entire program to address the culture. I'm good there. Jay?
All right, so as I mentioned before, as culture changed, disease changed. So before 1921, infectious disease was our leading cause of death. Okay, later by 1939, we actually had it the 5th leading cause of death because we had these wars and we had antibiotics and we figured some things out. But since 1921, almost 100 years, heart disease has been our leading cause of death in America. Controllable too, very controllable. So it shifted. We had a cultural shift in which how we were living, and that changed our diseases as well. And we still stay on the wrong trend. So potatoes turned to potato chips. Fruit turned to fruit snacks. Coffee, oh wait, can we do some water? No, we can't. We can only do coffee. Family dinner to TV dinners, hunting to farmed animals, and then vegetables. Who the hell eats vegetables anyway? That's really what it's turned into. I mean, I'm meeting kids now. I see a lot of kids. And I'm meeting them that they don't know a pear grows on a tree. They don't know it comes there. They don't understand a potato's dug out of a ground. We don't even know where food comes from anymore. We're so disconnected with it, that's not a good thing. So the CDC estimates 1 in 10 adults meet daily fresh food requirements. So 90% of us aren't even hitting our requirements, let alone if we already have malnourishment because maybe our parents didn't eat right, or maybe we haven't ate right for 30, 40, or 50 years. We're not even hitting what we need in a day, let alone to make up the fact that we're already deficient in things. How many of our current chronic diseases are built on deficiencies? Many of them. And it's just because we're not eating the correct foods. If we did that alone, holy cow, what would it look like? So animal products are the highest average in the world here as far as daily consumption. We consume the most of them. All right, 60%, this is still from the CDC, 60% of the daily calories come from processed sugar and oil for the average American. Okay, well, last time I checked, there's no micronutrients in sugar and oil, or very few if there is some fat coming from some coconut, but it's very few. And that's where all of our deficiencies are. Not in macronutrients, we eat far enough, but there's very, very poor quality. So the vitamins, the minerals, phytochemicals, these things we don't get anymore, all right? So the culture's changed. We don't have time to be healthy. Families don't have family dinners. We don't sit and talk anymore. We don't socialize. We're not learning to cook or shop. Half of what I do, once people know the answer, is I have to teach them how to shop, how to cook. Have you used a knife before? I'm dead serious. Like, I have people who never cut up their own vegetables. So I'm like, what are we really doing here? We don't even know how to take care of ourselves. And I mean, you can be self-taught, it takes you a little time, but that's where we're at. Gardens. I've lived in an area where my HOA said, no, you can't do that. I think at my chiropractor, Dr. Joel back there, I think he had somebody that was at his office that they couldn't grow their garden in their front yard. And they started giving food to other people in their neighborhood. They would come down. So within their neighborhood, their neighbors loved it. They'd come down, hey, get some. But no, we can't do that here because of the way it looks. Okay, why? Can't have a garden? It's just ridiculous to me that we live in a time where we can't have that. So we go fast food, we go convenience, and processed food daily. It's just our culture now. We don't have time, we go, and we don't make time, okay? We only care about our health once we lose it. We talk prevention all day long. Name the company, Empowered Prevention. But few people listen to our words until they come back and go, I just had something come up. It's like, damn, you could have stopped that a long time ago. But you waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. Yeah.
So I'm going to give you guys some visuals for our this diseased culture that he's speaking about. One of my favorites. 1990, 2011. That was a person, that was a TV. I remember carrying some of those for my dad around. And we switched somewhere. Food delivery. Grubhub, McDonald's delivery, all that fun stuff is the easiest that we've ever had it, right? Oh, this. Has anybody seen these? Anybody knows what this is? There is I guess a craze right now. I mean, these are people YouTubes that have over millions of views. These people are professional bingers. They get entire plates of hot wings and they video themselves eating that for other people's enjoyment. And that's what your kids are watching on YouTube. Oh, the fast food we got. Sedentary living. So this chart right here, broken into 24 hours. This is an average American. Right here, that's sleeping. That's active. So half of that, the other time. We got 7.5 hours sitting at work. We got an hour and a half watching TV, hour and a half of leisure time, sitting again. On home on the computer, sitting and eating, usually sitting at a table. So you're spending 12 hours of the day, and I mean, we got to take out 8 for the sleep as well too. How much of your day is spent sitting? And again, I'm talking about all those adaptations we have for our bodies, supposed to be upright, not seated, and then we bitch about sore muscles or muscles not working or accumulation of fat. Surgery, medicine, shots, and then our culture again, guys. It's one of my favorite statistics of the Blue Zone was that one of the things that the people did in the areas of the world that had the longest living people with the most functional health in that long age is they had regular meals with family and loved ones. That was one of the things. It's crazy. We can talk about nutrition and how much I should move, like spending time with people you love and communicating. That can be something. Again, because that's where we came from. That's what we're adapted for. And so now we're going to break down kind of what we believe about disease. We're going to use diabetes for an example, and we're going to use one of our star pupils as that example too.
Cool. So there's 2 models. So when we talk about Empowered University or coming here to do a wellness program or work with a trainer or any of our things that we do here, we pride ourselves on giving you root cause information. So we want to, whether we're talking exercise and chronic pain, food and your chronic disease, we want you to know that there's a treatment model and you actually can reverse disease. And we have plenty of research on this. So this starts about a year ago. So we had somebody that came across Nick. Her name is Judy. And she came across Nick and she was a diabetic for years. Of course, with diabetes comes blood pressure, comes cholesterol, comes inflammation in her body like crazy too. And she went to her doctor and she was pushing an A1C of 8. And if you don't know anything about that, that means you're getting close to insulin. And you don't want to go on insulin. So she went to her doctor. Doctor said, you really need to do something. But that's very vague information. Well, of course I want to do something. I guess I'll start eating better and exercising. So she decided to do that. Luckily, her paths crossed with Nick. So Nick started getting her on the right path. He started talking to me a little bit. I started sharing information on disease reversal, which butted heads with what she was taught, which was on a treatment model. So basically, in a nutshell, type 2 diabetes, what we're dealing with here is a fatty liver. We're dealing with insulin-resistant cells. So fat is jamming up the receptors on all the cells in the muscles and in the liver to where sugar stays in your blood and it doesn't go into the cells like it should. And because of that, we get dysfunction. So we talk about gaining fat. Where do you think the fat's going with someone who's insulin resistant? It's storing on the body, right? So it's clogging these things up, so now the normal physiology isn't happening. So when I first started talking to Judy and said, no, we're going to put you on a low-fat diet, we're going to get these oils out, because we are going to clean out your liver and we're going to get it working better. She looked at me cross-eyed, like, what are you talking about? You're going to have me eat fruit. I'm like, absolutely, because we are going to reverse your disease. We are going to do it that way. Needless to say, now we fast forward a year later, her A1C is in the mid-6s, she's off of half of her medications, and she can't believe it. I remember at one time, she came to me, and at this time, she was maybe in the low 7s with an A1C, and she came up here to get her workout with Nick, and she walked over, she said, Jason, last night I had a piece of cake, it was my birthday. And she was like, anytime I would have had that before, I wake up and my blood sugar's well over 100. She's like, but not today. I actually went hypo, which means she was low. Interesting. So she looked at me in the eyes and she said, is this really true? I'm like, Judy, you took your blood? Of course it's true. Just because you've never been told about it. So it's a reversal model. And so with heart disease, with many of the 15 leading causes of death, we have plenty of research on this if you want to look for that. So it's a different way to go about it. But our culture, once again, is set up to treat, and you YOLO. You only live once. So just push it to the side and keep going. And I look at it the other way. I do only live once, so I want to feel good while I'm here. I'm not going to just throw it down the drain. Not the other way, which means I'm going to eat more and then regret it, or drink more, or do drugs, or whatever it is. No, I want to feel good. That's why I'm here once. So what are we talking about? You got to change your culture, and I say at home, because this ain't going to happen anytime soon as we talk about a city or the nation. It's going to be a while. So you need to start doing it at home, by yourself, with loved ones. If they won't do it with you, find people. Got a group of them right here that care. And you've got to stay strong to that, because that's where it starts. I started helping people with nutrition, helping work with their doctors to reverse their condition, giving them the research, educating them on this new lifestyle. But only about 50% were making it there because their mindset wasn't right. And I needed somebody who understood behavior and psychology, and somebody who understood how to exercise correctly to reverse a disease and not just kick your own butt. So we had to do this. So where does it start? It's a pleasure trap. I love that book. It's called The Pleasure Trap, because many of the things are scientifically designed that we eat in a laboratory. They're food products, not food. And because of that, they stimulate our brain and our pleasure pathways. It's called Bliss Point. It's scientifically proven. That's how we make our junk food, our fast food, and those things. They're made in a lab. Like I said, this is capitalism. They want you to buy it again and again and again and again. So being aware of that allows you to break free from that cycle. So we're starting with the mind. Your taste buds do change. It takes about 5 days to begin, and it starts to happen. So what are we talking about? We have to repair the damage. If culture set us up for all of this, what can we do now? It's not gloom and doom. It's not game over. But what can we do? You go to a 100% plant-based diet, or I will accept 10% or less if you're trying to reverse a disease, only because of T. Colin Campbell in the China study, and he proved that research. And then the blue zones are usually 10% or less, and they're the longest living people on the planet. But if you're diseased, I would recommend that you clean your body out. So maybe you go 100 and go all in. I'm 100% plant-based because I had colitis, I had high blood pressure, I had these things going on in my body, and I wanted to get rid of them in my body. Because you knew just a smidge about my story, I knew what this model of prevention looked like for me, and I knew I needed to change how I was living to take care of myself. So what are we going to do? We're going to stop eating just protein, because that's for our muscular system, and we're going to eat for all of our major organ systems. So our immune system, our digestive system, our endocrine system, our lymphatic system. There are foods you can eat for all of these, not just for your muscles, which you see. And that's where all of our diseases lie, is in these other systems. So I'm going to eat for all of them. I'm going to rebuild the hydrochloric acid in my stomach. That's our first line of defense. I'm then going to start working on my microbiome, which is the trillions of bugs that live on us, in us, and through us. And we need to get those back, and you can with food. We work on the liver, kidneys, lymphatic system, pancreas, and we rebuild those organs next. So as certain parts of your bodies get healthier, it allows other parts to get healthier. The cool thing about our body is it's all connected. So what's good for one disease is usually good for all of them. There's very small cases where one thing isn't, and it doesn't work that way. That apple is going to help every damn disease you got. So that's what we're going towards. We're going to replenish the phytochemicals, the enzymes, the living enzymes that come from living food, vitamins, minerals, mineral salts, intracellular pH. So that's get your oxygen up. We've known that that drops cancer since 1931, I believe. And all the elements that we're made of that we don't get because we're getting food that's fortified with things, and it's not the actual elements that come from the periodic table. Like synthetic fluoride versus fluoride that's found in your soil. Two different things. So what we can do, I'll let Nick come into this first part.
First of all, I want you guys to understand that there isn't one optimal way to live. It's not how nature works. Natural selection has created us we adapt to the environment that we're in as best as we can. But that adaptation is contextual to that environment, and if the environment changes, that adaptation can be disadvantaged now. It can be not helpful. So that means that's what this is I've tried to do, is I've tried to get as general as I possibly can, because the people that want to say, I'm going to live paleo, I'm going to live like a hunter-gatherer lived, they lived all over the world. And people all over the world live differently, and they eat different things. So that being said, we need to get specific for each of you guys. That's what Jason and I are here for, is we're here to sit down and try to figure out individually, what do you guys need? That being said, this is general, practical information that everybody can leave here with, and you can improve your health and your life right away, guys. The number one, the first couple there being 10,000 steps a day and 150 minutes of low-level cardio per week. We got to move, guys. Hopefully I convince you with explaining some of these adaptations that we have. We're supposed to be upright. We're supposed to spend like half of our day moving slowly, upright, walking. And none of us are probably even close to that, I know. But again, steps, 10,000 steps a day. We all got a watch or a phone that tracks us for us. A super simple way to do that. 150 minutes of low-level cardio per week. I did an entire seminar on metabolism and how to figure out, if you want to get a little more specific, you can YouTube. It was Metabolism, Movement, and Nutrition for Weight Loss. That's on YouTube. We can put a link to you guys, anybody that would like that emailed to. I dive a little deeper into the science behind that, but try to shoot for 150 minutes of low-level cardio on top of your 10,000 steps per day, and that's spread out throughout the week. Lifting weights 2 to 3 times per week. One of the main indicators of maintaining health and function in old age is maintaining your muscle mass. It's one of the biggest pieces that helps you guys stay healthy and functional in old age. And then now eating more foods, whole foods.
So I think that we all know how to cook animal products if you're still eating them, right? And anyone that I work with, they already know how to do that. So I don't talk to them about that stuff. I want to talk to them about all the foods that they don't know how to eat or have never heard of, which is our whole foods. So how can we get more of these in our diet and an abundance of these in our diet? One stat that Nick didn't say, like we talk about a paleo diet. Has anyone that you've met on a paleo talk about how that they have 70 grams of fiber that they ate a day? So that's a part of the research that's just left out, but they create a diet program in a culture and sell products and supplements. There's no people I know that were eating that much fiber. So I want you guys going after the foods that you're deficient in. Do you have vitamin deficiencies? Is your microbiome a mess? Your gut bacteria, your intestinal bacteria? Eat fiber, it's prebiotic. Where are the things that we need to get more of these foods back in your body? So whole foods, fruits, vegetables, legumes, seeds, nuts, minimally processed foods. I honestly, maybe 3 days a year you can eat processed foods, but at this time in our culture, I'm dead serious, we got to make up for some lost time here. We can't just be doing a little bit here and there, 1 foot out, 1 foot in. It doesn't work that way. And I've had multiple people now in the years that I decided that I want to start talking about this more vocally that were 1 foot out, 1 foot in and didn't listen to me. And they're not here anymore. Because, okay, I'll just get to it. I'll get to it. No, 100% all in right now. That's what we're missing. We have to clean this up a little bit and start eating better. And then lower our fat intake. I don't really care much about protein, but most of our cells, our liver, all of our organs, our heart, our vascular system is just jammed up with so much fat. And it's usually a combination of processed sugar, making it nice and sticky, and then clinging on to that fat. The combination of the two are the culprits to me, both.
Can I snag that real quick?
Yeah.
So just so you guys understand, this part, his eating the whole foods and like this, I kind of look at it as like the rebuild. I look at it as like replacing what our culture has taken away. And so if you can implement this stuff back in, and yes, we need to go, especially if we're having a disease, we need to be hardcore. We need to go 100%. There's ways then too, guys, to work with your psychology. Like the way I do it is when I started hanging out with this dude, I fought it and I battled it. I'm a giant meathead. I played football and slamming 3 protein drinks a day forever. But what I did is the only time I eat meat now is I try to keep it to my last meal of the day. I think of what did my culture do? What did my ancestors do? They moved around, they gathered stuff. They ate berries and nuts and fruits and seeds and tubers off the ground, and then maybe towards the end of the day, someone made a kill. Now we can go feast. So there's ways that we can adjust your guys' lifestyle to where we try to meld our past culture where we came from with the current culture that we're in right now, as well as your individual culture. There's a way to meld all of this where you don't have to go live in a hut, eat off of only things that you cooked on a fire, and spend all your time standing up. And that's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that we have to return to where we've come from at least a little bit, or at least start to meld the two together in a practical way. And that's where we start to audit your guys' culture. So we need to add in healthy, empowering habits, people, and places, and minimize or get rid of the others. And if we don't, we're going to have a tough chance of getting over whatever we're trying to, guys, whether that be a disease, a disability, or obesity. So we're going to go ahead and open up to questions, guys. What do we got? Make sense?
It's a lot to take in.
We know.
And to be clear on the food part of it, what I mean is if someone comes to me and they have heart disease and they know it and they're on 4 or 5 medications, it's not enough to go in and out if that's your goal. It's what percentage are you committed to your goal? What percentage are you? And then you start working with someone to slowly get there. But it shouldn't take years to get there if you're really trying. So I'm that aggressive with it because I've watched people this past year die because they didn't ever commit 50% to it. And they thought they had time. And that's a big illusion, thinking we have more time.
So that's why we've created a community and a culture and a program here to help us, because understanding that the culture is the biggest piece and that's the hardest piece to shift. That's what we've done, is we've tried to create a program to help walk people through that process, because we really understand that it's not just shifting your diet, it's not just shifting how you exercise, it's shifting your life and your lifestyle. And we have the science to help you guys understand where we need to go, and then we have the processes to help you get there in a practical, pragmatic way, because we know it's tough, but there's help. We appreciate all you guys coming out tonight. If you have any questions, come talk to us. Thank you.